Greetings and good day. This is the Tetrarchy, and while I'm still working on that first content video, I thought I'd take a few moments just to allow us to get more in touch with each other and to connect through an understanding of ideals. And so to do this, I thought I'd take a nice little political quiz I found recently, and so why don't we start right off? We should strive to remove hierarchy where we can. I very much disagree with this for the good of a family, a business, a state, the heavens themselves. There's a natural and organic hierarchy that's been built up over generations. And for the good and for the cohesion and stability of these entities, hierarchy is needed. It provides a foundation, and it provides a clear boundaries for how it can function. Next question. Capitalism has failed and should be replaced with another system. I'm a distributist. Capitalism isn't the worst thing that we could deal with in society. It's got its handful of problems, but I don't believe it has failed totally. But it doesn't have, like distributism, that concrete foundation in the faith and good morals. So I will go with slightly agree. Large-scale civilizations are unsustainable. This kind of ties in with my beliefs on distributism, and that's the Catholic idea of subsidiarity. And I'm no great imperialist. I have a fond feelings for great empires, but I have a more comfort with smaller kingdoms built over generations of a growing culture instead of great monolith and multicultural empires, even if they have a single culture, overreaching culture that the others assimilate into it. It often causes more problems. But I have no real opinion on that. We should strive to remove borders that separate us as human beings. What do they mean by that? Borders are based on... Okay, they do mean like state borders. No. For the most part, in most circumstances, and some they're very artificial, but in most circumstances, borders are the creations of millennia of wars, migrations, cultural hegemony, and all of that growing into these single entities that we have as the modern nations. And the drive to just rip them down, well, just look at the migrant crisis in Europe. The free movement of people is a foolish idea. It's especially in such large numbers, and the belief that just getting rid of the borders will stop people from migrating in huge numbers is a fantasy. The borders are organically, are for the most part, born of an organic development, and they should be kept for the good of society. Technological advances often cause more harm than good. Of course, with weapons, yes, they do cause a lot of harm, because as the technology goes up, so does the kill counts. But technology can save so much more. But I have no real opinion on this. I'm not a technophile or phobe, so no opinion really. State involvement is needed to protect citizens' interests. I would say, let me look at it. So it's about settling disputes and all that. I do believe the state should have some involvement to protect contracts and settle disputes, but it should be done, as in the idea of subsidiarity, at the smallest level, at the closest level that can adequately cover it. It should be done at that level. The growth towards huge centralization and large, faraway bureaucrats is a thing that has caused so much pain and just waste. Not to mention just a disconnect from the local people who might have totally different views of the world and have different concerns compared to those faraway bureaucrats and pencil pushers. So I'm going to say slightly agree. It is moral and justified for someone to profit from ownership of private property. Yes. Just yes. There's nothing wrong with private property. If anything, more people should own property. They should work it. They should develop it. And they should earn a profit from it. And they should step away from being the wage slaves that are pretty much funneled into state benefits and all the like because of that. So yes, private ownership and profit is good. Religious leaders should play a key role in the running of government. Well, if I remember correctly, they are now, like Roman Catholic clergy, are banned from stepping into politics or being a part of political movements, really. But I gotta say, I'd rather have them in it. No, I mean, look at history and look at the bishoprics of the medieval world, which were either sometimes just simply religious, but also sometimes they came with secular control of the land, and I don't think there's anything wrong with clergy playing a role, especially in the Roman Catholic sense. I'm not going to argue about Protestant or Muslim or any of that in the Western world, because they're not my concern. Yeah. The betterment of society should be the primary goal of members of said society. I'll do slightly. The moral fiber and the public good should be a concern for people. It shouldn't be this artificial top-down concern that comes from elected officials often these days, or from nosy bureaucrats. But it should be, people should be good to each other. They should work for the betterment of each other, especially in their local setting. So I'm going to go with slightly agree. It is important to be wary of change, thus we should stick to tradition. I believe it was G.K. Chesterton who called tradition the democracy of the dead. And tradition is important. It connects us to our ancestors. It connects us to ancient knowledge and beliefs and ideas. And it's not some throwaway connection that can be tossed aside and will be fine. It's a living thing, and it's been built over generations by those who came before. So to just throw it away is such a foolish thing. It's a selfish thing, and it's a foolish thing. Resistance to the system is best achieved through the use of underground markets. I'm going to go with slightly disagree, just because of, well, when I think underground markets, you think of the trading of illegal goods and such like that. So I'm just, for a simple answer right now, I'm just going to go with slightly disagree. Next, society should not seek to impose any specific code of conduct on an individual. Disagree. People need barriers. They need set restrictions, and they need an objective moral code, or else, as we see today, the chaos of moral relativism and all the madness that can come from that. So, disagree. Most, if not all, government decisions should be decided by a citizen's ballot rather than fixed-term representatives. I'm just gonna go with no opinion. I'm a monarchist. I vote in local elections, I should say. I do vote in those because I should care about my local environment, but I also live in a highly progressive state, so general elections, for the most part, are automatically against any of my ideals. But no opinion. I'm not really for mob rule, but I'm not for faraway representatives who have no real complacent away from their citizens who have elected them. So just no opinion. We need to try and protect the environment from humanity and its actions. As humans, we do have a duty to be tenders to this world that we live on, to be the caretakers of it, and to protect it for our descendants, to allow them to enjoy it as much as we can in this life. So I'll go with slightly agree. Women do not, but should share the same rights as men. I'm just going to put no opinion because I don't really like how that's worded. Women should have the same rights as men, but, well, I don't really care much for the modern Enlightenment-influenced ideas on rights, but like I said with the first question about there being a hierarchy, there is a hierarchy to the family, and there is a disconnect between what spheres men and women should be in, and from a biological and from even a biological standpoint. But I'll just go with no opinion right now. State regulation of markets should be minimized. I go with slightly agree. I think we've all seen over the last few decades how harsh overregulation can be on an economy. But I'm not all hands-off, laissez-faire, let the market decide, that's become too much of a golden calf. But I'll put slightly agree that it should be minimized. The rights of the individual should be paramount. Slightly disagree, just because people aren't islands. We live in communities. We have to live in cohesion and stability with each other. So it can't be all frilly-nilly it can't be frilly-nilly like that. So I'll just put slightly disagree. Opposition to the system in the form of actions not allowed by the system is a justifiable tool for change. I'll have to put slightly agree, just because as a monarchist and a traditional Catholic monarchist, a lot of the governments we found in the West now are those that came about through revolution or coups or some other illegitimate form of takeover. I have no problem being the Jacobites or a peasant of the Vendée region. So I don't have much against such overthrowings, especially when it's attempt to return to legitimate authority, compared to the violent and illegitimate revolutions of later years. All right. Money should represent hours of work rather than the value of work. Do they mean that in the quality or how people view the value? You feel me? All right. I hate these economic questions because there's a thousand different variables. I'm just gonna leave it with a no opinion. Sorry, folks. All right. People should be free to identify with any sexual orientation no, disagree. This is part of that moral relativism and that Marxist culture, the cultural Marxist theory of just destroying any old boundaries, any old standards, and just throwing that away so men are free to do what they wish. No, this madness is destructive on the individual level and on the societal level. It causes more pain and confusion, and it's just a plain disagree. It's denied. I deny it. A strong and well-funded military is desirable. Slightly agree. Since the French Revolution, we've had the scourge of mass conscription in most cases, and while I do believe in having a good military, it shouldn't add up to such a huge part of the national budget. But it's hard these days with how technology is and the economics of total warfare that we often have instead of the old battlefield warfare of yesteryear. So I'll just put a slightly agree. I should be proud of my culture and support those of my own culture over those who are not. I would do regularly agree, but the second part of that question, and support those of my culture over those who are not, is that just a purely cultural pride, or is that because it's truly objectively right? So I'll just put slightly agree. Well, I do believe that, yes, there are a lot of cultures out there that are inferior. Even, I would say, modern American Enlightenment materialistic culture is very inferior compared to old world Catholic throne and altar culture. So, yes, there are. I'll put slightly agree for that. We have achieved such levels of production that there are more than enough goods to go around. Well, I do believe there are an abundance of goods. This wording makes me think that so thus we need a redistribution from bureaucrats and government officials, and redistribution to those who are more needy at these levels. And no, well, the solve for this is personally working on lessening waste and being charitable. That's such an easy fix to this for many problems. But so I'm just gonna have no opinion for that question. Government intervention in the markets in order to protect citizens' interests is justified. Slightly agree. Have no problem with trust busting or going after businesses that are less than honest in their dealings. So I'll slightly agree. Change should be achieved through the apparatus of the system. I think that other question kind of where there should be action taken outside to bring about change. So I'll go with slightly disagree, because as I said, many of the systems in the modern West now are illegitimate. They were brought about through ways outside of the system, so I have no problem doing the same thing back to them and retaking what is right. Workers' unions lead to inefficiency and corruption and or unemployment, and thus should not be allowed. I do not like unions. I prescribe to the guild theory, because like distributism itself, they have a foundation in the church and theology and good morals. And in the medieval age, guilds would often set aside funds for orphans and widows of their workers who may die. They organized for feast celebrations and great celebrations for their patron saint. I have no problem with such a thing as the guild system, but modern workers' unions, I have my doubts about. I actually work in construction as a side job in the family business. I have a lot of problems with unions. We're a non-union business, so I'll go slightly agree. People should elect representatives to vote on government in their policy in their place. I would say slightly agree if it's also underlined that it should be with subsidiarity at the lowest level. We should try and keep as much power at the lower levels as possible. But seeing as it's a little open-ended, I'll just go no opinion. Religion and government should be kept separate. I disagree. I'm sure you can already understand that from my other answers. Similar ideologies should act in unison to challenge radically opposing ones. I try not to hold any concrete trust in ideologies because they're so often prone to failure and to losing their path, or not even having a foundation, at least the popular ones that actually get support, because if it's simple, it's easy to get people behind it, but you add a little dimension to it, it's doubtful. So I'm just going to have no opinion on this. Society should adhere to religious tenets. Yes, I already talked about objective morals and set boundaries in a society. Workers should be organized according to their industry in order to protect their interests. Yes, we've gone over this with the guild system and all that. A small group of politically conscious intellectuals should lead us into the revolution. into a counter-revolution, they can do that. But I don't care for the whole talk of these intellectuals leading the poor plebs. So no opinion really. We should try to limit meat and or dairy consumption. No. If you're a Catholic, and especially if you're a traditionalist, you should abstain from meat on Fridays, even outside of Lent, and on Ember Days and all that. So, this, this isn't what they're asking, though, but, I'll go no opinion on that. We should strive to abolish wages. Let me read on. Wages are instead often unfairly. If you really want to go back to a barter system, people on your local level, no opinion on this. People have the same fundamental worth, as in that we are human and we have the same standing in the eyes of God. But with that first question on hierarchies, there are boundaries between people, and it's not that the crown makes you a better man, it's that with the privileges of the crown, when you're born into it, there are great and heavy responsibilities that adhere to tradition and for the good of your people. So I'm just going to put slightly disagree. But just so you know, it's not that those beneath on the lower levels are dogs or anything on in that way, in that view. Government should only be involved in the administration of vital services like the police and fire services. Let me see. While I do believe government's main view is its main purview should be these vital services, they should be controlled at the local level, like I said. And governments should have a hand, not a heavy hand, but there has to be that hand for the good moral fiber of society and for the so those objective morals and standards can have some weight behind them in society. Taxation of land and buildings should be the primary source of government revenue. I'm not a whole taxation is theft kind of person, nor do I believe that the levels that we're taxed these days are anything near just. It's just so they can have just a bit to try and offset the mad spending many governments have these days. I'd rather have taxation on land and property taxes and such over stuff like the inheritance tax, which I believe is just totally unjust, or income taxes or anything like that. So I'll put a slightly agree. Communism is a failure, and it would be detrimental to even attempt any such system. Yes, it is. Just open a damn history book and you can find that you can learn that just fine. So, yes. Finished. So, let's see what we got here. So we have phalangism, 72%. Okay. Paleoconservatism, 90%. Caliphate, 70%. Oh gosh, you guys know the truth now. I'm really a Sunni Muslim. Days without Sunni tricks, 0. Your worst ideologies are anarcho-naturalism, civic nationalism, individualist feminism, and queer anarchism. Well, no real surprises, I guess. Maybe other than that last one. But the worst ideologies seems to sit right on the hit right on the mark there. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this just is pretty much time for me to wait. It's just a thing for me to waste time. I just hope it allows us to connect a little more and for you to understand my beliefs. So I hope you have a great day. Pax Christi and good day.